Rock area and are growing, and then of course out in the Inland Empire, in Santa Barbara, and in Eureka. And if we get more funding, the idea is to stay in the communities that we're in and to expand. And so what can we now bring them with an expanded EBB program? Well, we can bring them cost-effective retrofits for cripple walls up to 7 feet. Currently, if your cripple wall is 4 feet or higher, you have to get an engineer to design it. And this FEMA P1100 will allow a contractor to do up to 7 feet. So much more cost-effective. To not include an engineered design. The other thing that we can do is we can roll out, and we have a FEMA grant application in to do the living space over garage type of house. We've got a couple of cities that we selected. The idea is to utilize that plan set, figure out what our grant should be, what's the tipping point where you actually get somebody to move, and then roll it out, learn from it, with the idea that we could expand that living space over garage retrofit program throughout the state. Hillside is a little more difficult, much more expensive, much more, obviously intensive engineering. But the idea is with this document that we now have on record that there are hillside homes that are dangerous, hillside homes that really need to be looked at. So it's very important. So expand the EBB program. Support building departments in developing residential mitigation programs. One of the things that we do is when we go into a city with our EBB program, we meet with the building department. We create a directory of contractors. So we now have this kind of network of people who are working in this residential seismic realm. And as I mentioned, a lot of the engineers are kind of one-person shop, operating out of their house. The contractors are very small. The building departments, when you move outside of the larger cities, these building departments sometimes don't even have their own building officials. They're utilizing other firms. And there's lots of a support system that you can bring to a building department and to educate them, bring them along with us on the development of these projects. So that's really exciting stuff. Gets me out into the field talking to people who are doing this. And I always tell people that when I give a presentation to the public, I'm there to speak, obviously, and to educate, but I'm also there to educate myself and to learn, and it's very important. The program future, provide financial retrofit incentives, as I said, for living space over garage, and a real gap is the small multifamily. So you can imagine that a small multifamily is what we call 5 to 10 units. And I went on Zillow and I started looking, what does that mean? And it's not just, kind of like the small tuck under garage. If you think of the Los Angeles area, you'll find Victorian that has now parking underneath it that has 10 units. So there's 10 families living in a Victorian with tuck under parking. So it's really kind of just not a big stretch to go from single family to these 5 to 10 units. And so we also have a FEMA grant application in to do a pilot program to do the small multifamily. So it's a little bit of a stretch from us out of our single family, but we really feel that it's the same idea here. You have a standard. You provide financial incentives, you require they do it in accordance with code, and then we learn from that process and go forward. So other exciting things. As Dave said, 7,300 homes. We can look at the pictures, but if there's an earthquake in California, we now have a test population of houses. If I drove through Napa after the earthquake, and you can see a house that's come off its foundation, right? But I can't tell the houses that are not off their foundation, which ones are retrofitted and which ones were just, lucky or, had enough walls in the basement or something. I can't see under the house. Now I have this representative sample of California houses that I know were retrofitted in accordance with the standard. And so one of the RFPs we'll be putting out soon is to get some entity, engineering firm, whatever, to help us put together a post-event dashboard study where we can go around and look at those houses. And please, dear God, they're all going to be on their foundation. Is what I hope. But obviously, if one comes off its foundation, the idea, of course, is to learn about what happened. We also, a little tougher on the insurance portfolio side, is that we do have a record of homes that are in that category of cripple wall house that they tell us they are not retrofitted. Insurance data is a little more difficult to use. As I mentioned earlier, we don't sell our insurance product. The participating insurers do. It's their client. So I'm trying to figure out the legality of using that database as a kind of the other side of the equation. Homes that we know, or to the best of our knowledge, no, we're not retrofitted, to include into our dashboard survey. Another one that's really exciting, Greg Deerline invited me to sit on this advisory panel, and I'm telling you, I haven't slept since I heard about this machine learning AI. So essentially, the way I tell it, to lay people is using facial recognition software to identify characteristics of houses. The idea is, in all the stuff we saw today with the Rapid, is, drone photography, Google photography, satellite photography, and then of course machine learning, where you say that's what a masonry chimney looks like, that's what 5 steps up look like, that's what a cripple wall looks like, with the idea that you could create an inventory. And inventories are extremely important. We had a bill that was vetoed by Governor Brown recently that was to create inventory of buildings in California, because how does a city start with understanding what their vulnerability is if they don't know how many buildings of this particular vulnerable class I have? When we look at single family dwellings, people say, so how many living space over garage houses are there? How many hillside homes? How many cripple wall homes? Well, we estimate cripple wall homes by using the pre-1940 age of a house. I don't know how to do it with living space over garage, because our consultants tell us that deficiency still exists in the building code today, which is pitiful, and we got to change that. So, number of buildings that are in our purview for things that we need to get to, inventory. So, I'm really hoping to get an RFP out soon, and we do have FEMA grant. I have a FEMA grant for everything known to mankind, I think. And if the government gets back up and running, by God, we might get some of that money. But we do have a grant in to do some of this inventory in a couple of cities in California. I really want to put that out on the street and say, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Come back and tell me what you can do. Because when you see some of this amazing stuff that we've seen, we can put that to use for California to become a more resilient state. So wake up in the morning and think about the first house we did in Earthquake Brace and Bolt. Was a really great guy. His name was Kim, and we were filming him, and we didn't give him a script. So once again, you're kind of going, please say the right thing. And he said, I sleep better at night. And so, master's degree in engineering, years of working in engineering, and those few words just meant so much to me, because what we do as engineers is so important and so amazing. The work these guys do is just fantastic. But unless we can implement that into our housing stock and create a resilient California, then all of what we do is really just academic. And so it's so exciting to be part of this resilient movement and take this brilliant engineering that's going on, put it into what is someone's home, the single most expensive investment they'll ever make. And as I said, I got the best job in the world. And so thank you so much to Kelly and David and to their team. And if you'll please join me in thanking them.